Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, the Tokyo series over. The Cubs are back from Japan. I am back from Japan. They are an 0-2 baseball team currently. There's panic in the streets of Wrigleyville.
Those are just people running wild watching March Madness post St. Patrick's Day. There could be lots of reasons for that.
Yeah. I'm not going to take too much away from two games. Matt Shaw looked bad defensively one game and then great defensively the next game. What does it tell us? I don't know. He struck the ball well a couple times, had some really bad at bats. Seiya Suzuki had those weird swings that he has had, like when he's in a slump, and then Kyle Tucker got a double off the wall. What does it tell me? What does any of this tell me? Is Justin Steele bad now because he had a bad game against the Dodgers? It's two games. They didn't play great. There wasn't much positive to take away from it. If you want to panic, you're more than free to do that. I just struggle to take much away from two games in the middle of March against the best team in baseball. That was down to two of their better players, but still, it's just, we'll see what the Cubs are. But I get people that aren't like inspired by that or that we're already ready to be negative. They're going to lean into that. So, go for it, I guess.
Yeah, I think some of the perspective is a little harder too when this is a team that a couple of years ago missed the playoffs by one game, and that even 2 years later, the kind of payroll structure and roster building philosophy has not evolved that much, right? It's not like, they just missed the playoffs and they fire their manager. Oh, wait, they did, and brought in counsel, but didn't really surround him with a totally new and improved cast. So I kind of get that part of it. It's crazy to think the Dodgers could just, basically sit two future Hall of Famers and not miss a beat. But I think that's most teams. That's the plight of most teams right now. It's kind of the Dodgers league. And yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you feel? I'm trying to, reading some of the comments out of Arizona and trying to picture what, athletes are feeling. Like, how do you feel after making that long trip, not on a charter flight and not having the same accommodations?
Yeah, well, my travel, like we don't need to spend too much time on it, but it was insane. I went to Osaka, tried to check my bags back in Osaka, and I was told, "Oh no, you're at a different airport for your flight to LA." I didn't really realize that when I was booking it, so I had to take a bus, like an hour-long bus trip to another to another airport in Osaka. Flew to LA. Had a 5-hour layover there. It was a 5-hour layover in Osaka, so I had plenty of time to get to that other airport. And it was about 26 hours of travel with layovers. Surprisingly, I feel okay. I got home late enough that I just kind of crashed hard and probably slept the best I've slept in a while. so it worked out in the end. We'll see where I am by like the rest of this day. I was able to stay up last night and watch Illinois basketball. So that put me in a good mood. So we'll see if I'm able to push through and watch some more March Madness. But yeah, back to Arizona soon enough. And I do like, it's weird. It's supposed to be tougher on the way back. I talked to some people that said like, it's always harder on the way back. But then one person was like, I've had some random trips where I'm okay on the way back. So it's kind of random. I think, it depends on when you land, how much you sleep on the flight, things like that. But right now I'm okay. So who knows how those players are feeling? I bet it's hitting everyone differently, like that's my guess. Like what I was told was, and I think this is what happened. I didn't pay super close attention, but like don't expect anything on Friday as far as regulars playing. I think a couple people that traveled played, but not like, Dansby Swanson wasn't out there, Kyle Tucker wasn't out there, and that was kind of the plan. Most of the pitchers didn't pitch, from my understanding. I think maybe Brad Keller was the only one on the travel roster that pitched. I could be wrong, but he didn't pitch much. He pitched in the exhibition games, and he's not on the roster yet, so it makes sense that he's just getting some time in. I'm sure they needed a day or two. I think they may be back at it. I wonder what the lineup looks like on today's Saturday when we're recording. I wonder what the lineup looks like.
Well, I mean, they never post the lineup like in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
But our guy Paul Sullivan of the Chicago Tribune had a couple news and notes crediting him, a special guest on Northside Territory previously as well, but that Nico Hoerner felt well. He was a regular who played, and that seems to be on track for that domestic opening day in Arizona against the Diamondbacks. We also had a couple of unsurprising roster moves coming out of Japan, in that Eli Morgan and Jordan Wicks were both optioned to AAA Iowa. I think we've kind of always viewed Wicks as just a depth starter, that he's at Wrigley when guys get hurt. And I think Eli Morgan is interesting in that the option really works against him in this case. I don't think they think that we were kind of tipped off to this, in the middle of March, of like, look, they're going to make a lot of decisions just based on that. So Eli Morgan is the prime example of a guy who gets optioned to Iowa, but you don't know if he'll even make it to Iowa, right? Like someone could get injured in these intervening days to where they need him, but they expect him to spend a lot of time in Chicago, just maybe not from the start.
Yeah, I was actually told when he was acquired, like, he has an option. Like, in an ideal world, you never use that because he's so good. But there were a lot of moves made after that now make more sense to option him. We've talked about this all spring, really. They're not a super optionable bullpen. There's a ton of guys that don't have options. Craig Counsell, Jed Hoyer, they love depth. They're not going to start DFAing guys. I know there's good. I saw it comments on my piece. I know people want oh geez, why am I blanking on his first name? Miller's geez.
Tyson Miller?
Tyson. I wanted to call him Trevor Miller. Tyson Miller DFA'd or whoever. They're ready to DFA guys that had poor springs. And listen, Tyson Miller may have a bad April and like may struggle, and then he has earned his DFA. They need this type of depth. They need bullpen depth. They need to see who is good and who is not. There are moments when you think this guy's terrible, he's no good, he can't pitch, and then they go on huge runs because that's what relievers do. I mean, literally, Tyson Miller was DFA'd last year and then had a great run with the Cubs and really stabilized their bullpen. So I get it. Eli Morgan looked good in one game. He very well can be and needs to be an important part of the bullpen, but when you have an option, it's going to be used. Guys are going to come up and down, and that's just part of baseball. Yeah, I was also like, it's also important to remember that these moves are for Jameson Taillon and Matthew Boyd. They don't tell us anything. More moves are going to need to be made. There needs to be a 40-man move made for Brad Keller, and there needs to be and also a roster move made for Nico Hoerner. So someone's going someone's going to be DFA'd off the 40-man, and then 26-man roster moves will need to be made. It could possibly be the same one for the DFA and the 26-man. We'll see. But those guys are, unless there's injuries, those guys are going to be on the domestic opening day roster. So and like you said, Nico, that they reported from out of Arizona, Sully and whoever else was out there. Nico's back, and he was in a major league spring training game. He'd been playing in minor league games. He looks good. He looks fine. He looks ready to go, right? Like all that matters is health and playing and getting those innings in. I think that, I'm sure he's bummed to have missed Japan, but obviously it was the right move to get him some time out there. Patrick, before we do anything else, let's take a quick break and hear from a sponsor.
FT fam, I hope you have as much confidence as Penelope right now, who is an avid Spot and Tango fan, okay? And she uses the code FOUL, Kratz, because this is a personalized dog food subscription service that prevents you, of course, from going to the store to pick up the food. And she just gets the highest quality unkibble. That is what they're known for. And I know you love the quiz part of it, too.
It's a super quick quiz, but it lets you give them the information and they tailor it to what is needed based on their age, size, activity level, all things that are custom for each and every one of your dogs.
Yeah, human grade ingredients in that unkibble, USDA meat, fruits, and veggies that are approved there. No artificial stuff, no preservatives. They've got the exclusive deal for the FT fam for a limited time. Go to spotandtango.com/foul. Use code FOUL to get 50% off your first order. That's spotandtango.com/foul. It's spotandtango.com/foul, code foul.
Sorry,
we need to get your dog, an endorsement deal.
Yeah, seriously. I'd not seen that one before, so it threw me. Sorry. So one of the things, again, I'm not going to take anything too much away from those games, but when you see the team struggle with runners in scoring position, it's an instant, that is an instant trigger for fans. It's just like if a bullpen blows a lead, these are the types of things that trigger fans. I believe, going off memory, the number was 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position. They had a game plan going into game 2 against Hiroki Sasaki and nailed it. Like, they were going to take pitches. They were going to force him to, this guy is making his major league debut in Japan, in his home country for the Dodgers. Like, that's a huge moment for the kid. They were hoping he'd be a little rattled. And I don't know if it was just nerves or, a kid has a little trouble finding the zone in general. Who knows? We'll see what he's like as the season goes on. They drew a ton of walks. They had a great approach. They couldn't get the big hit, right? And that's when stuff like that happens, it frustrates fans, and you try and extrapolate it and say, this is what it's going to be. I have no clue if that's what it's going to be, right? I believe if they can get men on base and that they'll eventually start driving them in. My point is, they face 2 talented pitchers and a good bullpen. That's not going to change. They face Zach Gallen. Yes. And then I don't know if it's official, but Gallen has opening day. We know that. And likely followed by Corbin Burns. I assume is Corbin Burns. It's a good pitching staff. Merrill Kelly. I'm sure I'm missing. They have young talent that I really like on that pitching staff.
Eduardo Rodriguez, maybe he might be.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I mean, they have a ton. They have veterans. They have good young pitching. It's a tough team. Playing the Diamondbacks for 4 in Arizona is not going to be an easy set of games. It gets no easier. They're face tough pitching. They're going to continue to face tough pitching. The NL is stacked right now. So get ready for, and their March, April schedule is stacked. So get ready to likely be frustrated, Cubs fans. Like, they may win some of these games. They're going to have to outpitch them, though. The offense may not get off to a roaring start. We'll see. Maybe they do, because it's Arizona, and maybe they're just, Kyle Tucker elevates the group. Say Suzuki gets hot, whatever. Who knows what happens? But I'm just saying, Yamamoto looked great. Sasaki was fine, and got through the big moments. Was able to keep the traffic, limit the damage, but it's not getting easier.
Yeah, and we heard this throughout the offseason as a group of us were reporting on Sasaki at different points. Like, it was emphasized he is not a finished product yet. He is not quite Yamamoto. He's certainly not when Darvish came out, not as experienced as Senga. Like, no doubt one of the most gifted, talented pitchers on the planet, but not as refined or as polished. So the Cubs probably caught him at a good time. Like if you'd want him probably in his debut in his own country, dealing with nerves after his first major league spring training, or not even a full spring training. So yeah, I mean, that could be sort of a missed opportunity. And you're right. I mean, you've hammered the schedule before, and I think we're going to have to continue doing it when you're looking at, okay, playing in Sacramento in a minor league ballpark after facing a really good Diamondbacks team, getting the Padres and the Rangers for your first homestand, then going back out west to Dodger Stadium, to San Diego, then come home, you get the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers and the Phillies as a homestand. And then at the end of April, go to Pittsburgh. So like,
and I mean, a good pitching staff in Pittsburgh. I mean, you may face Steves and guys like that.
Exactly. Like it's not, but this is the second half of that road trip is at Milwaukee. So, we'll see. Like, we have to do this exercise in the Athletic of making preseason predictions. And like when picking a World Series winner, like I probably would have picked 6 or 7 National League teams before one American League team. Like I really sort of struggled to envision, okay, who's going to win the pennant in the American League? Like who do I think has a really just like stacked, loaded team that can keep winning? And you can kind of, to me, cross out the Central. The West has some interesting team. The East, I don't think any team in the East is in the American League East is, fully what we think of as the American League East, as just like, kind of that monster team where kind of everything is kind of going in the same direction. And that's what the Cubs are dealing with. This is why Jed Hoyer had said, wins are going to be at a premium in the National League. That's why they wanted, more resources, why they, went in for Kyle Tucker and things like that. It's gonna be a hard place to earn a playoff spot.
Yeah, and I think it was Ken Rosenthal that was saying on one of the Foul Territory shows that these things are cyclical. It's not going to be like the NL dominates forever, but right now the NL is a very difficult place to play. It's going to be hard to like. The division may not be hard, but the NL is stacked. There's just a lot of talent around. And, when you have the big money teams, you have a team like Atlanta that probably, are we overlooking them because they just weren't as dominant last year and they had a lot of injuries and they still make the playoffs, but they didn't make a lot of noise. So yeah, like I am curious to see how they settle in, right? Like I don't want to completely throw out the Japan games, but there's like part of me that's like, that just tells me nothing. It was just such a weird set of circumstances. So I'm eager to see how they look and how they, it's going to be a challenge this first month. One of the things I saw this strength of schedule chart. Someone tweeted out, and it showed it by month, and they have the hardest month. If you look at March and April, the hardest month, obviously strength of schedule based off last year's record, right? Yeah. Hardest month of any team is March, April, Cubs. Easiest month of any team is May, Cubs. So
okay,
you'd like to, I think the scenario that the Cubs, realistic scenario, right? Dream scenarios, you just dominate in the first month because you turn out to be one of the best teams, right?
Yeah.
But realistic scenarios, you grind through that first month, stay healthy, and you're around 500, and then you clean up in May, build your confidence, and get. And like a lot of things, something that I don't think fans fully understand, like they'll start breaking the season down into segments and be like, well, they're 500 from this point. They may be 15 games over 500, but baseball is majority of the time. It's not like the 2016 season where you're like pretty much every month you're awesome. You have one great stretch and that catapults you into the postseason. That happens a lot, where you just have this stretch where you're 15 games over 500, and then the rest of the season you're like 4 games over 500 or 2 games under or something like that. You get into the playoffs. That's just kind of how it works a lot of times in baseball. Like that's not you want to be the dominant team. You want to like constantly be super consistent, but you need one great month sometimes, and like it can maybe that month. You just don't want that to be counterbalanced by a terrible month. So that's kind of how you have to hope it works out. I don't know. I don't know how this March and April is going to go. If I did, I'd be making a lot of money. Not betting on baseball.
No, definitely not betting on baseball. I think the Cubs did crush it for most of last April too, right? I mean, I think they started 17-9 or 17-8, something like that, and everything was they were kind of rolling. And I think that series at Fenway Park became, your default of like offensive stats, and then them just falling off a cliff.
Right when Dansby said, like, we asked him, like, are you just a good team? And he said, I reckon. And ever since then, they went in the tank right after that. I was like, you can't say you're a good team. Well, I mean, just kidding. Obviously, if you believe you're a good team, you say it. But
no, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap this up here, because a huge part of the logic of this season was bringing in 2 guys from the Houston Astros and Ryan Presley and Kyle Tucker to just shrink those terrible stretches that every team goes through, inevitable slumps. But the Cubs have had a recent history of letting that just snowball into like 6-7 weeks of bad baseball. And we'll see what Ryan Presley can do out of the bullpen, if he can shut the door with some of those close games. But Kyle Tucker is obviously supposed to be that elevating presence. And I'm sure you saw Chandler Rome's story in The Athletic, our colleague at The Athletic, and also on the Foul Territory Network. Just a great story on Cam Smith and how he has just blown everyone away in Astros camp.
Yeah. Look, Patrick, we've talked about this, right? Like you have to give up talent to get talent.
Yeah.
I think Kyle Tucker's one of the top 5 offensive talents in the game, maybe all-round talents in the game, really, because he can run, he can play defense. I've liked Cam Smith since they drafted him. I've heard nothing but good things. This is not that surprising. Am I surprised that he's in the conversation to make the team? Yes, that's a little aggressive to me and surprising. I am not surprised that he's shooting up prospect rankings. I've been saying it since he was drafted. They were like, this is the guy. People think like we're going to look back at that draft and say, why wasn't he the number 3 pick? Why was he available when the Cubs selected him? That's what I've been told, not by one person. I got so many texts when he was drafted that like from people outside the org, great pick. The Cubs nailed this. They didn't overthink this. They got the right guy. You watch this guy turn it on all season long. He hit the crap out of the ball from the moment he got in pro ball. Look, he could flounder when he gets to the big leagues. This could all be smoke and mirrors. I don't know, but it's not like the Cubs didn't know what they had. It's not like they felt they needed to be aggressive. They needed to win now. And they had to add a difference-making bat. How much have we said that, Patrick? Like how much have we talked about
for years, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
We've talked about this with Jed. This is not something we like sneak off and do a podcast on. Like Jed has been very open about this.
Yeah. So they did what they had to do. I do wonder like what it's going to look like in 5 years. If they are unable to bring Tucker back, and Cam Smith is leading another like bounce back Astros run, whatever it is. I don't know. I don't love the way that organization is run as far as the depth it has right now behind all these older veterans, but Cam Smith is their best prospect, and he could be one of the better players in the game in a few years. We'll see. Like that's how effusive the praise was in the piece, and honestly, it's not much different. Like it was the piece was a lot. Like there was a lot of good stuff in there, and the players and teammates clearly love him, and there are people that think very highly of him. I don't know if I told Chandler when he first told me about the potential of this trade. I'm like, the Cubs aren't trading Cam Smith, man. They love him, but they did. So they loved him. They still love him. He's a highly thought of prospect, and he is mashing and getting insane praise. Good for him. It's going to drive. I think it's just going to drive Cubs fans nuts. Like I think that's hard to deny.
I mean, the praise was over the top. Like
60 homer.
Yeah,
right?
60. The next 60 homer guy that he's built like a transformer. I mean, all of this stuff that could prove to be true-ish. I just think as long as the Cubs make the playoffs and Matt Shaw has a long, productive career at Wrigley Field, I don't think there should be that much. Looking back, I think clearly the constraints Jed Hoyer's front office was working within is also a factor too. You can't just ignore that. Like these are types of trades that the Cubs sometimes have to make, if they're not just gonna not even compete for Juan Soto, or top of the rotation pitchers if you want to get better in different areas to cover up for maybe some offensive deficiencies. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those gift that keeps on giving for us would be something to talk about. And I think we've had very limited interactions with Cam. I feel like it was a Zoom, and then he was at Wrigley Field towards the end of the year, but definitely very polished, kind of personable guy who, is confident and is in a place, like you said, where they're not afraid to rush guys to the majors. And also, Dana Brown is part of the Astros GM is part of a interesting front office dynamic where the owner has a lot to say. They're kind of non-traditional or a little unconventional, but his background was in scouting. Like that guy knows talent. And I'd imagine that he had Cam Smith's name, circled on a board somewhere of this is a guy that we need.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I can't wait to see how he performs, how good he is. And the meltdown by Cubs fans if they don't make the playoffs is, I'm not sure if I can.
Will be justifiable.
It'll be yes. They need to make the playoffs. Cam Smith has nothing to do with that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cam Smith, if he's good or not, it doesn't matter as far as the Cubs need to make the playoffs this year. That's the bottom line. All right, Patrick, let's wrap this one up. We'll be back next week, inching closer to domestic opening day. I'll be back in Arizona. And then eventually we'll be back home, right? We're about 2 weeks away from Wrigley opening day, less than that. It's all creeping up on us. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care.